I want to talk a little bit about your album that came out. I caught that album as soon as it hit number one in the reggae charts, and I'm curious because I know you were doing some touring before that, right before that album released. So, what did you do before you released that album for it to really hit number one in the reggae charts?
Before I released the album, I released a couple singles. One of them being "The Wrong Impression," it's the title track, and my first one was "How We Do." I filmed a video with my production team, Revelry Studios, in New Hampshire. The theme was like being in the winter time and still wanting to play happy reggae music and pretending it's summer. But that video seemed to catch on pretty quick when I released that one. And then when I announced my record coming out, it seemed pretty highly anticipated, at least in the New England region and other places I've performed. But I don't know. It definitely hitting number one was a surprise to me.
The album's awesome, and you mentioned that upcoming album next year. So, can you share a little bit about that?
So yeah, I basically that was another thing I was doing. I forgot to mention during COVID was tracking my next record. And I had this arsenal of songs. I narrowed it down to about 14, and yeah, I just started tracking at Revelry Studios back in Manchester, New Hampshire. Got a great team of musicians to really capture what I wanted and had in my head, and I pretty much, listening to the mixes now, it's like it's come to life. So I'm pumped. It's a lot more personable, a lot more, I'd say, mature than my first record. Um, and I feel like people will be able to relate to it, especially after this crazy year. But I'm very excited to release it. I don't really have any date on releasing it. I'm still trying to figure out if I'll be releasing it independently or on a label, or it's really hard to know exactly what I'm going to be able to do, because I mean, I've got to put out a record. I want to start touring, but at the moment I can't. So um, I guess it's all strategy at this point. I'm trying to figure out what the next move is, but there will definitely be new music out in 2021. If not the album, at least a few singles and music videos and stuff I hope to be able to put out.
You know a lot about touring because I've heard that you've actually started touring, I think, around the age of 16. So how did that help you prepare for
I
touring
mean,
on your own?
back then I was in an old, like, heavy hardcore metal band called Spies Like Us, and I mean, it was touring, but like it was just a bunch of jabronis going on the road being like, "We're on tour," and like playing at a VFW somewhere. But I mean, I did get the experience of road life at a young age, and I'm glad I got to experience it at a young age, just because it's not necessarily the most fun place there is. There's a lot of nights in Walmart parking lots and sleeping in a smelly hot van, and it gave me a taste of it at a young age, and at least now in my life, I'll be able to, like, once I'll be able to hit the road again, do it the right way, and take those early lessons and put them to use.
So I heard that I guess while you were touring with your metal band, that's kind of you've kind of fell in love with reggae while touring with your band. So how'd you come across reggae music and then just how did you fall in love with it while just performing while in a metal band?
Well, I was raised on a lot of different types of music. My whole family's musicians, and my dad would always play like funk or soul R&B or metal, whatever it be, like Black Sabbath. I like listened to it all, and I don't know, metal kind of stuck out in my angsty stage of my life, my like teenage years, and I just started playing metal and kind of came like naturally to uh, gravitate towards those angsty kids in Manchester, New Hampshire, and start playing metal shows at VFWs and having fun, like energy release. All that was attractive. But how reggae came about, I'd say, was I just really got on a Sublime kick when I was about 17 or 18. I started working at a record store, and I started listening to like everything Sublime all the time, and like Brad Knoll became God, and that's how I really got into it. And it wasn't until later on where I got more into like roots reggae, bands like Steel Pulse and Toots and the Maytals, stuff like that. But Sublime is really what kind of got me sucked into the whole reggae rock world, and started like chilling out a little bit because like I could relate to Bradley because he grew up in the Long Beach like hardcore scene
Hmm.
or like punk scene, and he kind of meshed all his influences in there. And me growing up in the hardcore scene in Manchester, even though it's a lot colder than Long Beach, but
Yeah.
like I could relate to that, his influences in that way. But I mean, that's what brought it all together. Sublime. Usually, that's someone's answer, I think, too.
And one thing I really thought it's such a big movement that I don't hear too much people mention it is just the influences that Sublime has brought in. I mean, just a diverse range of people,
Hmm.
just everyone of different
Yeah,
backgrounds, genders, ethnicities, especially, just have been brought together just based on their music.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's the true nature of a melting pot living in the U.S.
Oh, yeah.
for sure.
And I heard that you're actually really into podcasting, so much so that I think I saw that you actually had a podcast a while back. So what got you into
You did your
podcasting?
research. Um, Honestly, just listening to podcasts. I feel like anyone who can get into the whole podcast world, you're like, I want to start a podcast. So me and my old roommate Vinny, we started a podcast called the uh, Joe and Vinny podcast. Like that's it, and it was literally us just getting stoned and being stupid and making fun of our other roommate Dante because it was just fun. It was silly, but I don't know, I think my podcasting days are over. Besides getting interviewed on them, like now, but like hosting one, I don't know. Vinny would have been a perfect host. I don't know. I hate hearing myself. I'm gonna even watch this and cringe, being like, shit.
Well, and another podcast I actually heard that you're really into is the Aubrey Marcus podcast, and it's actually
Yeah.
helped you in a lot of ways. Do you mind explaining how that's helped you?
So I actually discovered Aubrey Marcus through the Rogan podcast, like most probably have. But that one is one of those very introspective thinking ones and like personal. And like people who know Aubrey Marcus like bring up like, oh, he's like you only like him because he's a hallucinogenic advocate and he's like into doing LSD and DMT, and it's like
Yeah.
no, like it's honestly less about that. It's more of like trying to learn about yourself and
Oh, yeah.
understanding your who you are and your thought process and how people perceive you and how you perceive yourself and all that in introspective thinking. I think it's good for everybody. And like I was saying before, like sometimes I just want to listen to the Bill Burr podcast and hear just funny shit. But when you like everyone, I feel like could get something out of listening to that podcast. His guests specifically are really interesting, and then
Yeah.
like make you think a little bit. You know?
That's one show that I'll say that has interesting guests. I mean, let
Yeah, for
alone the
sure.
conversation, but he has like some really interesting guests on there.
Yeah, he does.
And I mean, I saw a posting like that you posted of, I guess, him talking about like just loving yourself too. Like you can't really expect people to love you if you don't, fill yourself with
Yeah,
love. I thought that was like a
yeah,
really strong words, and that's the first time I've heard something
absolutely.
like that.
And well, that's the thing, and I feel like a lot of people can relate to that this year. You know, it's like spent being quarantined for half the year, and it's like you kind of have to kind of look inward and
Yeah.
understand more about yourself, and you have to love yourself first before you can love anything or anyone else. And it's important. It's important for sure, and that's why I shared that. You know, because I don't know. I don't know if I'm crazy thinking that way, but I think everyone should love themselves for sure.
No, and that's one of those things, and I was just pondering it too until I actually saw that video. It's one of those things like you think about, but when you hear someone else kind of say it, like, okay, this confirms it that what you were
Yeah,
thinking. is real.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because yeah, like if you just think of it yourself, you may not think of it as like, well, it's like whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But if you hear someone else say it, and you're like, yeah, okay,